7:18 a.m. local time. The Caribbean Sea is calm in a way sailors notice immediately. Flat water, light wind, clear visibility well beyond 10 nautical miles. For a U.S. Navy carrier strike group, these are textbook conditions. Nothing hidden, nothing unpredictable. No reason for tension until the radar picture changes. Inside the Combat Information Center aboard USS George Washington, a radar operator breaks the routine silence. Contact bearing 2,110 multiple surface returns. Not one contact, not two. 5 appearing almost simultaneously, moving in a coordinated pattern that stands out from normal maritime traffic. Initial range, 21 nautical miles. Speed steady. Course converging directly across the strike group's planned track. No one jokes. No one asks for clarification. Civilian ships do not move like that. On the bridge, the captain of USS George Washington studies the tactical display without shifting his posture. The carrier, over 100,000 tons of steel, maintains course and speed. No turn, no acceleration, no early warning maneuver. In the U.S. Navy, changing course too soon can signal uncertainty. Automated classification systems begin processing the returns. Hull geometry, superstructure layout, radar cross-section. The data resolves quickly. Venezuelan Navy, 5 warships, mixed formation. The range closes to 16 nautical miles. The surface warfare officer reports calmly. Formation indicates a deliberate intercept course. This is not a parallel shadow, not a distant escort. This is a blocking maneuver designed to cross the bow, restrict movement, and force a response without firing a shot. A move meant to communicate intent without escalating to open conflict. USS George Washington transmits its first hail on the international bridge-to-bridge frequency. Unidentified Venezuelan naval vessels. This is a United States Navy warship operating in international waters. State your intentions. There is no reply. No static. No weak signal. Just silence. Range 12 nautical miles. Electronic support measures light up across the strike group. Venezuelan search radars are now clearly active. Every emission is detected, analyzed, and logged. Frequencies, pulse patterns, power levels. Each data point time-stamped and stored. Inside the CIC, the atmosphere tightens, not with fear, but with precision. This is the scenario crews train for repeatedly. A situation where every action is recorded and every decision carries strategic weight. A junior officer speaks quietly. Recommend course adjustment. The response is immediate. Negative train heading. USS George Washington continues straight ahead. Not out of defiance, but out of doctrine. International law, rules of engagement, and operational advantage all support holding course. Altering course now would not reduce risk. It would redefine the encounter. The 5 Venezuelan ships are now visible through long-range optics. Gray hulls, low profiles, aging platforms operating with deliberate intent. This is not an accident of navigation. They are testing reaction time, testing restraint, testing whether a U.S. carrier will blink when pressured. Range 8 nautical miles. No weapons are manned. No alarms sound. Flight operations remain secured below deck. Above the surface, everything appears calm. Below it, every system is awake. USS George Washington is not responding with noise or movement. It is responding with awareness. Every bearing change, every radar sweep, every moment of silence is being documented. The carrier does not need to maneuver to assert control. Presence alone is sufficient. And then quietly, without ceremony, a short internal order moves through the ship. Log everything. Shift to condition monitoring. From this point forward, the encounter is no longer routine. It has become a record, and records at sea have consequences. Venezuela moves to block the carrier. The range closes steadily. 8 nautical miles become 7, then 6. The Venezuelan formation tightens, each ship adjusting its heading in small, deliberate increments. No sudden turns, no erratic movement. This is disciplined navigation executed with intent. Inside the Combat Information Center aboard USS George Washington, the plot updates in real time. 5 surface contacts now clearly resolved as Venezuelan naval vessels are maneuvering to bracket the carrier's projected path. Two ships advance, slightly ahead of the formation. Three hold offset positions, widening laterally. It is a textbook blocking pattern. From the outside, it looks calm. 5 gray hulls cutting through blue water. No smoke, no weapons trained. But geometry matters at sea. And the geometry is unmistakable. The Venezuelan ships are not attempting to escort or shadow. They are positioning to deny space. At 5 nautical miles, their intent is no longer ambiguous. A second hail is transmitted firm and unhurried. Venezuelan naval vessels. You are approaching a United States Navy carrier operating in international waters. Maintain safe distance and alter course immediately. Again, there is no reply. What has changed is their speed. 2 of the Venezuelan ships increase throttle, climbing several knots above the others. The move compresses the formation and sharpens the intercept angle. Their bows now point slightly across the carrier's starboard side, narrowing the available sea room. In the U.S. Navy, this is called tactical pressure, a method used by smaller forces to force acknowledgement from a larger one. The objective is not collision, it is reaction. On the bridge of USS George Washington, the watch team remains steady. Helm orders do not change. The carrier holds its line, carving a white wake straight ahead. The logic is simple. The ship with superior awareness does not yield space unnecessarily. Below decks, the strike group sensors are fully engaged. Electronic warfare teams track every emission. Surface warfare officers annotate maneuvers. Nothing is interpreted in isolation. Every move is evaluated as part of a pattern. The Venezuelan ships begin sweeping their radars more aggressively. The energy spikes are clear. This is not passive navigation. They are actively building a surface picture, and they are being watched. A brief exchange takes place inside the CIC. Closest point of approach projected CPA under 1 nautical mile if current courses are maintained. That is close. Close enough to make headlines. Close enough to provoke speculation. Close enough to test discipline on both sides. Still, no alarms are sounded. The carrier does not maneuver. Instead, documentation continues. At 4 nautical miles, the visual picture sharpens. Deck crews are visible on the Venezuelan ships. Helmets movement near forward sections. Nothing overtly hostile, but nothing casual either. This is not a misunderstanding. It is a message for Venezuela. The calculation is political as much as tactical. A direct confrontation with a U.S. carrier would be reckless, but creating friction, forcing the world to watch, forcing Washington to respond. That carries value. For the U.S. Navy, the calculation is different. Every unnecessary movement risks escalation. Every aggressive signal risks misinterpretation. Control is maintained not by dominance displays, but by discipline. The carrier's presence already defines the battle space. At 3 nautical miles, 1 Venezuelan ship edges slightly ahead of the formation. It is now clearly attempting to cross the carrier's bow. The maneuver is slow, measured, but unmistakable. Inside the CIC, voices remain calm. Contact altering course. Intent consistent with bow crossing. Roger. Continue to monitor. There is no urgency in the response because urgency in moments like this can be contagious. Above deck, the sea remains calm. From a distance, it looks like nothing more than ships passing in open water. But beneath that calm, every second is being logged, every action preserved. The Venezuelan ships are pressing. The U.S. Navy is not reacting. And that imbalance, pressure applied to silence, is beginning to define the encounter. Because at sea, the side that forces movement is not always the side in control. Often it is the side that refuses to move at all. As the distance the U.S. Navy does not blink continues to close, the most noticeable thing aboard USS George Washington is what does not happen. No alarms, no sharp course corrections, no raised voices on the bridge. The carrier remains steady, her bow cutting cleanly through calm Caribbean water, engines holding a constant rhythm. To an untrained eye, it might appear passive. To anyone familiar with U.S. Navy operations, it is something else entirely. It is control. Inside the Combat Information Center, the picture is complete. Every Venezuelan vessel is tracked with precision. Bearing, speed, rate of turn, sensor activity. Nothing is left to inference. The strike group's awareness extends well beyond the horizon, fed by satellites, passive sensors, and worked systems operating without drawing attention to themselves. This is how the Navy prefers to fight its battles, quietly. A report moves across the consoles. Air picture clean. No fast movers. No rotary wing launch detected. That matters because the absence of air activity tells a story. Venezuela is applying pressure, but it is doing so carefully. Close enough to provoke, not close enough to justify escalation. On the flight deck, there is no visible response. Aircraft remain secured below. Crews continue normal movement. Nothing is done for show. But below deck, readiness has shifted. The carriers' escorts, destroyers, and cruisers operating in support are fully synchronized. Their sensors feed into the shared picture, creating layered coverage that overlaps the Venezuelan formation from multiple angles. Every ship in the strike group sees the same thing at the same time. There are no blind spots. Electronic warfare teams quietly catalog Venezuelan radar emissions, pulse repetition frequencies, sweep intervals, power modulation. What Venezuela believes is pressure is in reality exposure. Every second they transmit, they give away more than they take. On the bridge, the captain listens as updates come in. Closest point of approach projections are refined. The margin is tight but manageable. No order is given to maneuver. In the U.S. Navy, movement is a signal, and signals are chosen deliberately. A junior watch officer notes no change in their posture. Still holding intercept geometry. The response is measured. Understood. Continue to log. The Venezuelan ships are now within 3 nautical miles. Close enough for visual identification without optics. Close enough for misjudgment to matter. Yet still the carrier does not adjust course. This is not stubbornness. It is doctrine. By holding a steady line, USS George Washington removes ambiguity. Any unsafe maneuver from this point forward belongs entirely to the opposing force. Responsibility is clearly defined, recorded, verifiable. Above the waterline, the encounter looks uneventful. 5 ships, 1 carrier, open sea. Below it, a different reality exists. The carrier systems are awake in layers, defensive, formational, analytical. Not because a fight is expected, but because readiness is non-negotiable. The Navy does not escalate to prepare. It prepares so escalation is unnecessary. A quiet confirmation arrives in CIC. External ISR platforms available on short notice. No details are spoken aloud. None are needed. The message is simple. Options exist and options are power. The Venezuelan formation hesitates, not enough to call it a retreat, but enough to register. Speed fluctuates slightly. Courses are refined again, as if searching for a reaction that does not come. They are pressing against silence. At sea, silence can be disorienting. It offers no feedback, no validation, no emotional signal to read. It forces the other side to make the next move, without knowing how it will be received. The U.S. Navy understands this better than most. The carrier continues forward. The water parts cleanly at the bow. The wake remains unchanged. Every radar sweep, every course adjustment, every second of this encounter is being captured. Not for headlines, not for threats, but for the record. And in that record, one fact is becoming increasingly clear. The side applying pressure is not the side setting the terms. The side that remains steady as the moment does not arrive, then this happened in plain sight with noise. There's no alarm, no raised voice, no sudden maneuver. From the outside, nothing appears to change. The carrier maintains course. The sea remains calm. The Venezuelan ships continue their approach at measured speed. But inside the strike group, a quiet transition occurs. A single decision is made, not to escalate, not to threaten, but to clarify. In the Combat Information Center aboard USS George Washington, the order is brief and deliberate. Authorize airborne presence. There is no urgency in the words, no emphasis, just intent. Minutes later, on the flight deck, the stillness breaks, not with chaos, but with precision. AMH-60 Arcea Hawk is brought topside. Rotor blades begin to turn, slow at first, then faster, cutting clean arcs through the morning air. Deck crews move with practice efficiency, faces calm, motions exact. This is not a scramble. It is a message. The helicopter lifts smoothly from the deck, climbing just enough to clear the carrier's superstructure before banking outward. It does not race ahead. It does not circle aggressively. It moves directly toward the Venezuelan formation at a controlled altitude, well within established safety parameters. Inside the Seahawk, sensors come online. Forward-looking infrared, high-resolution optics, laser designation, non-lethal, unmistakable. Every system is synchronized. Every feed is live. From the Venezuelan ships, the helicopter is immediately visible. A U.S. Navy aircraft, low and steady, approaching from the carrier's starboard side. No weapons displayed. No aggressive posture, just presence. At 2 nautical miles, the Seahawk levels off. It does not crossbows. It does not buzz decks. It holds position. A narrow green beam flickers on. Brief, controlled, deliberate. The laser rests momentarily on the bridge of the lead Venezuelan vessel. Not a threat, a marker. You are seen. The broadcast follows calm and unmistakable. Venezuelan naval vessel. This is a United States Navy aircraft. You are conducting unsafe maneuvers in international waters. Your actions are being recorded. Alter course immediately. The message is repeated in Spanish. For the first time since contact, something changes. On the lead Venezuelan ship, movement becomes visible on the bridge. Figures step forward. Binoculars are raised. The ship's bow wake begins to shorten. Speed reduces by a knot, then another. Across the formation, the effect ripples outward. One ship eases slightly off its intercept line. Another adjusts, heading just enough to widen separation. No dramatic turn, no abrupt retreat, but the geometry shifts inside the CIC. Updates flow in quietly. Lead contact reducing speed. Formation cohesion degrading. CPA increasing. The Seahawk holds its position, maintaining a steady orbit. Sensors remain locked. Imagery is crystal clear. Hull numbers, deck layouts, crew positions, everything is captured, time-stamped and stored. This is not intimidation. It is documentation made visible. The helicopter does not linger longer than necessary. After one final pass, wide, slow, unmistakable, it banks away and climbs, returning toward the carrier. Behind it, the Venezuelan ships no longer press. Their bows no longer aim to cross. Their formation loosens, the pressure bleeding off in increments that leave no room for misinterpretation. Back aboard USS George Washington, there is no celebration, no commentary. The carrier never changed course, never raised speed, never acknowledged the shift outwardly, because the outcome was never about forcing a retreat. It was about setting the boundary. The message required no weapons, no collision, no escalation, just a clear demonstration that the situation was understood, recorded, and controlled. As the Seahawk touches down on the flight deck, rotors slowing once more, the Venezuelan formation continues to drift away. Still visible, still present, but no longer in a position to block anything. The moment passes as quietly as it arrived. But from that point forward, the encounter is no longer contested. It has been decided. Why the encounter ended without a shot when the distance begins to open? It does so without announcement. The Venezuelan ships do not turn away all at once. There's no sharp reversal, no dramatic break in contact. Instead, separation increases gradually, half a nautical mile, then another. Courses diverge just enough to remove pressure without inviting embarrassment. That in itself is telling. Inside the Combat Information Center aboard USS George Washington, the plot reflects what everyone already understands. The encounter has shifted from confrontation to observation. The risk of collision has dropped. The geometry no longer favors a block. The carrier maintains course because there is no reason to change it now. The Seahawk is secured on deck. Sensors are powered down. The data, however, remains. Every radar emission, every maneuver, every moment of silence, and every moment of hesitation has been logged, not summarized, not interpreted, preserved. This is how the U.S. Navy closes an encounter, by finishing the record. From a distance, the outcome might look uneventful. No shots fired, no warnings escalated, no visible show of force beyond a single helicopter. But outcomes at sea are not measured by explosions. They are measured by control of space, control of narrative, and control of risk. On that scale, the result is clear. Venezuela applied pressure to create reaction. The United States applied discipline to remove ambiguity. The Venezuelan ships achieved visibility for a moment. What they gave in return was far more valuable. Their operating patterns, their command behavior, their tolerance for escalation, their response to restrained force. They showed exactly how far they were willing to go and where they would stop. For the U.S. Navy, that information matters more than any headline. As the distance increases beyond 5 nautical miles, the Venezuelan formation stabilizes on a parallel course. Still present, still observed, but no longer relevant to the carrier's movement. No further hails are exchanged. None are necessary. The carrier strike group continues on its planned route. Operations uninterrupted. Air-wing schedules remain unchanged. Escorts maintain standard posture. The sea returns to the quiet rhythm it held before the first radar contact appeared. But the encounter does not end when ships separate. It ends when analysis begins. Later, the data will be reviewed by analysts far from the Caribbean. Patterns compared, assumptions tested, future encounters refined by what was learned here. That process is continuous. It is deliberate and it is invisible to those who expect conflict to announce itself loudly. This is the reality of modern naval power. Strength is not proven by who fires first. It is proven by who never needs to. The USS George Washington did not maneuver to assert dominance. It did not escalate to establish credibility. It simply held course, applied presence, and let professionalism do the work. The Venezuelan ships challenged a carrier strike group and discovered something fundamental. They were never fighting a ship. They were confronting a system, one built to observe, decide, and control without urgency. As the final range markers tick upward and the contacts fade from immediate concern, the bridge watch rotates. Logs are signed. The carrier continues forward, indistinguishable from any other day at sea. That is not coincidence. That is doctrine. Because when an encounter ends quietly, without force, without concession, and without uncertainty, it means the balance of control was never in doubt. And out here in international waters, that is the only outcome that matters.